Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we're discussing my thoughts on episode 10 of the anime series, Onihei. And this was absolutely a captivating, beautiful, and bittersweet story. This story that Heizo is weaving, for all intents and purposes, to his daughter, who's come clamoring in at the start of the episode, asking for her father to tell her a story, is nothing short of poetic and just really most bittersweet. And it also encapsulates some of the most beautiful imagery that we've seen thus far in this particular series toward the end of the episode, really driving home its captivating nature and the emotional impact of everything going on. He's very much telling the story of this theft worker who in his daily employ was a master carpenter. Sort of hailing back to that thieving aspect of this person's occupation, what that would entail is effectively when they're helping build homes and businesses, things of that nature, they would employ these booby traps and secret passages, corridors, crawlways, and things of that nature, so that at a later time, either them by themselves or with a crew in tandem, would be able to go back and make off with everything from precious metals to gems, monetary stipends and savings, and even up to and including, as we see by the end of this episode, business contracts. All of which takes on a very personal sense of vendetta for our sort of main focused character, Wasuke of Dojo. And it really was interesting to me, it struck me time and time again throughout the course of this episode how diminutive in size he was. Anytime he's bustling through the busy thoroughfares, there are people who are probably of average height towering over him. He's a very small individual. And this is something that actually lends a thorough sense of credibility toward the end when we see him scaling through crawlways under floorboards and being able to, get into this place that they're eventually going to hit out of this personal sense of vengeance that he accrues. Because as we find through the course of this episode, he's back in town after some time away, and he just happens, sort of trotting down familiar territory to run into whom we believe to be his nephew, Isataro, who has been taken care of by, I'm not sure if they specified whether these were friends of the family or they were actually offshoot relations, something along those lines. But as we find out, they're very apologetic once Isataro sort of leaves, and after they've had some tea and some dinner together and everything like that, his boasting about success in his career working for this paper contractor manufacturer outfit and things of that nature, even though the original master of the place has since passed away. And he's kind of keeping on the down low that he's having a hard time with the new current master of this workplace. But, these friends of Wasuke are basically apologizing, or relations, as I say, because for the past 22 years, as we find out through a flashback, back when he was a younger man, Wasuke was taking work in Edo and things of that nature. And this kept him away from his wife and his son all this, time. He didn't know that one day he would come back and find that she had passed away. His wife had died and left behind their, infant child, whom these two people had become caregivers toward, taking care of his wife, taking care of the child. He had this sort of arguably specious appraisal of his own life that he was probably fated to never have a wife and son of his own. He was used to things being stolen from him, much as he would go thieving in the night, which again adds to that poetic nature. And so this husband and wife, he basically promised with them, please, you take care of my child. You cannot have a child of your own. In this way, we're both happy. You get to take care of my child. By extension, I will become sort of his pseudo-uncle. That's what we'll call me and everything like that. And they agree to that, and for 22 years, watching this child grow up into manhood, they've had very prosperous, happy lives. It's given them something to live for. And Wasuke, being able to meet this young man who was his son, is his son, they really want to be able to come clean with Isataro that Wasuke is the real father, and the mother really died and everything. And he's basically like, no, don't worry about it. I'm actually very happy with the way things have turned out. Unfortunately, though, as we find, Isataro's life, his occupation is not very happy indeed. He's apparently being belittled and bullied and aggressively, verbally manhandled by the current master of this particular, paper contractor manufacturer situation. And they're constantly telling him he's a failure. They're berating him and making a public spectacle of it internally to everyone who is in the employ of this business. And one day, Wasuke overhears this, and he's trying to be supportive of his son, his pseudo-nephew, by telling him just hunker down, do the best work you can. You'll earn the respect of your co-workers. You'll eventually earn the respect of the new master of this business and things of that nature. And it really, we see sort of the barest hints that Isataro, he can't really handle it anymore. He doesn't know how much more he can endure. But he smiles at his pseudo-uncle and says, I'll give it a try. I'll try my hardest. But then, of course, when he returns back to this business, he has been set up to look like he's been stealing real. A whole sort of luggage box full of gold and everything like that they've purported, at least the master of the business has purported, he was going to make off with, and thus they have to fire him or he'll quit. And how is he going to deal with the sort of ill repute that will now fall on his family? It will disgrace his family. His parents will no longer be able to walk the streets without having fingers pointed at them and all kinds of deterrent terminology spewed at them and things of that nature. Very negative an outlook does this instill in Isataro, and so he commits suicide. And that utterly shook me and shocked me. I at first had thought maybe he had been the victim of murder, but I couldn't conceive of why they would do that. If they were already going to, sort of bury him, in the metaphorical sense by making him out to be this thief, which was not the truth at all, why then, kill him? Unless he used that as an excuse to do so. And of course, Wasuke is there to find his hanging body. His extended family is there. And adding insult to injury, making it that much worse, both this husband and wife also commit suicide. It rocked me to my core, and I had to stop the episode for a few minutes because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe, what has happened to this guy and his family. Just in the span of minutes, hours, days, arguably through the passage of time of the actual events. But I was gobsmacked and dumbstruck by it. It really affected me, emotionally. And then to pick up with it, of course, I had suspected there would be some impetus to drag Wasuke back to his thieving nature of old. He's kind of getting manhandled and bossed around by one of the local thieves who's like, you have, gadgets and secret passageways into this business that just so happens to be the one that his son or nephew had been working for. I want to use that. If you don't have it still printed on paper, which, Wasuke basically says he burned it up when he chose not to live that lifestyle anymore. He's like, you still have it in your head, though. And we're going to go in and we're going to take this place down. One way or the other, I'm going to convince you to do that. And of course, things just happen to coincide in a way that brings him back to that lifestyle in that sense of vendetta, this renewed purpose to take this business and its just, villainous master, the boss of this particular business, who saw to the deaths of all of his surviving extended family, including his own son, that was driving force enough for him to strike back. And again, I really loved because Hikoju is following Wasuke around. He's wondering what he's up to and everything like that. He reports back to Heizo, having been faked out. Hikoju got faked out by Wasuke, who had like a cardboard cutout in the form of him sitting in this tea room or whatever. And Hikoju's like, it's been hours. He hasn't moved a single inch. And he goes in and he looks and he's like, he got me, So he goes to Heizo, reports on everything he is now aware of, everything that he's spoken to Wasuke about, because Wasuke actually does get the best of him when he's following him through the thoroughfare at 1.2. He ducks down an alley and Hikoju turns the alleyway and there's the guy waiting for him. What do you want, Hikoju? And so he relates everything to Heizo. And I had to applaud Heizo because here we are dealing with such severe corruption and heinousness that it's like I wanted to see Wasuke get the best of this business and its current boss, its current master, for the losses he suffered. And Heizo was very much of the same mind. He's like, well, it's such a beautiful moon out tonight. I'm so captivated by it. It might take me a little while to get ready to get going to do anything, to affect any arrests or anything like that. And so we see Wasuke go into this place with a whole crew in tow, and making off with as much of the money, as much of the savings that has accrued in the vaults of this particular business. But that's not enough. Wasuke goes to this cabinet where he's got like a key, and I don't know if it was that he had built the cabinet as part of his carpentry, or if he just happened to have like a skeleton key or something along those lines, but he finds stacks of contracts that will spell out, if lost or destroyed, it will spell out the eventual shutting down and bankruptcy of this particular paper contractor. And he makes off with them as well. And you see him, sort of grasping at his chest. He's already spoken at one point throughout the course of the episode of having heart trouble. And this is very much why he backed off this life of crime that he had once employed fully. And I just had the suspicion, poetically so, to see him going out in this such a way, making off with the contracts, helping make off with as much of the gold and the savings it had built up. It was like, I was so satisfied by that, but it was such a bittersweet thing to see that he too passed away. But arguably, you could say, it was him rejoining the family he lost, in an effect to bring about, making up for how criminally wrongfully done his son and this extended family had been at the hands of the master of this, paper manufacturer. And it really struck me. There's that point where, after being seen by Heizo and his entire crew, they're on the bridge sort of looking out at the water. They're making their getaway by boat, and the boat is heavily weighed down by all the gold. And he realizes, if we're going to make an escape, we can't be caught. And if we're this weighed down, we're an instant drag out of the water by Heizo's entire lawman force and everything like that. So he's like, start dumping it. And they're dumping all the gold in the same river that his extended family, the husband and wife who took care of his son for so many years, had drowned themselves in. Such a poetic and bittersweet sort of coming full circle. And adding even that much further to that, when he was talking to his son, whom believed him to be his uncle, he was relating how he could not wait for the winter months because it would get him off work, and he loved the snow. And it didn't always snow, but any time it did, he looked so forward to it. So that when Wasuke would tear up all of these contracts into little shards, and just throw them off this boat, as he's falling and dying himself, he calls out, "Do you see that, Isataro? The snow you so love." And I swear I was full on, if not full on crying, full on teary-eyed, because it was that beautiful and impactful. It was just absolutely captivating and really rocked me to my very core. And that has been this series on whole. It's been able to really captivate me time and again with these very sort of, Edo period yet / Western noirish stylized storytelling. All of these stories are grand adventures, and they all captivate and get you accustomed to and familiar with these singular characters that you don't spend a whole lot of time with. I've touched upon this before, discussing the series, but you don't spend a whole lot of time with these characters, these individuals, and yet they leave a lasting impression on you. You get to know them as though you've spent entire seasons of a series like this with them. In minutes, in a 22-minute stretch of the full length of one episode, you feel like you've spent a lifetime with these characters, and their plights, for better or worse, are captivating and impactful. And it's just a level of masterwork that, as far as I'm aware, the studio that produces this series is relatively new. Sometimes it shows in the quality of animation, but the quality of the storytelling and the performances, the voice work, astounds. If you can get past the sometimes poor, questionable animation, what a hell of a series Onihei is. And so, just again, the most emotional, the most poetic and beautiful, captivating, impactful episode of the series thus far was this. At least for me, Let me know in the comments below what you thought of episode 10 of Onihei, if you've seen it as well, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, anything goes in the comments below. Just love having that conversation. And yeah, I'm going to be very intrigued to see where we go from here in the next episode. And otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well. And I'll catch you all later. Peace.